In 1513, an Ottoman admiral named Piri Reis compiled a world map on gazelle skin, drawing from earlier charts and written sources. The map depicts parts of Europe, Africa, and the Americas. Its existence suggests access to extensive geographic knowledge, but the original sources remain only partially identified. Piri Reis himself stated that his map was based on approximately 20 earlier maps, including some dating back to the time of Alexander the Great. This claim implies the survival of much older cartographic traditions. Yet none of these original maps have been definitively recovered or verified by historians. Only a fragment of the original Piri Reis map survives today, discovered in 1929 in the Topkapi Palace in Istanbul. The missing portions limit full interpretation, as key regions are absent, making it difficult to determine the map's original scope and intended completeness. The surviving section shows the western coast of Africa, parts of Europe, and the eastern coastline of South America. The relative accuracy of certain coastlines raises questions about the surveying methods used, while distortions elsewhere indicate reliance on multiple sources of uneven quality. One of the most debated aspects of the map is its depiction of South America, which appears detailed for a period shortly after European contact. This suggests rapid transmission of geographic information, though the precision may be exaggerated when compared to modern coastlines. Piri Reis was an experienced naval commander and cartographer within the Ottoman Empire, actively involved in Mediterranean and Atlantic naval conflicts. His professional background explains access to captured maps, but does not fully account for the diversity of sources he claimed to have consulted. Several inscriptions on the map describe where specific information came from, including Portuguese charts and maps attributed to Christopher Columbus. These notes imply a compilation process rather than original surveying, yet the exact nature of these referenced maps remains uncertain. The reference to a map by Columbus is particularly controversial, as no confirmed Columbus map matching this description survives today. This absence limits verification and forces historians to rely solely on Piri Reis's own written annotations as indirect evidence. The map was created at a time when global cartography was rapidly evolving, driven by European exploration and maritime competition. This historical context explains innovation, but also introduces the possibility of errors, propaganda, or speculative geography influencing map-making decisions. Some interpretations suggest the map shows lands beyond what was officially known in 1513, including southern regions that appear exaggerated or misaligned. These claims raise investigative questions, though many scholars argue these features can be explained by distorted projections. Map projections in the early 16th century lacked standardization, often resulting in stretched or compressed coastlines. The Piri Reis map reflects this limitation, complicating modern comparisons and making it difficult to distinguish between genuine accuracy and coincidental resemblance. The material used, gazelle skin parchment, indicates the map was considered valuable and durable. However, the lack of accompanying documentation about its distribution or use leaves its practical purpose navigational tool or scholarly compilation open to interpretation. Ottoman archives from the period contain limited references to the map, suggesting it was not widely circulated. This scarcity raises questions about why such a detailed compilation did not have a broader documented impact on contemporary navigation or exploration. When the map was rediscovered in the 20th century, it immediately attracted scholarly attention due to its unexpected details. Modern analysis, however, has been constrained by the fragmentary condition and the absence of corroborating primary sources. Early reactions to the map often emphasized mystery over methodology, sometimes overstating its implications. This tendency complicates objective assessment, as separating documented fact from later interpretation becomes a necessary investigative step. Scholars have noted that portions of the African coastline align reasonably well with known geography of the time. This alignment supports the idea that Piri Reis relied heavily on Portuguese maps, yet it does not explain inconsistencies in other regions. The South American coastline on the map shows a continuous landmass extending southward. Some interpret this as speculative geography, while others argue it reflects incomplete exploration data, highlighting the uncertainty inherent in early cartographic efforts. Labels and illustrations on the map include ships, animals, and notes about climate and inhabitants. These elements provide cultural context, but also blur the line between empirical observation and narrative, embellishment common in maps of that era. The absence of longitude as a precise measurement tool in 1513 significantly limited cartographic accuracy. This technical constraint explains many distortions, yet it also leaves room for debate about how certain coastlines appear more refined than expected. Comparisons between the Piri Reis map and later maps reveal both similarities and discrepancies. These comparisons suggest a shared pool of geographic knowledge, but they also expose gaps that cannot be resolved without the lost source materials. Some researchers have proposed that the map reflects a synthesis of Mediterranean, Arab, and European cartographic traditions. This hybrid origin would account for its unique features, though direct evidence for such integration remains largely circumstantial. The political environment of the Ottoman Empire encouraged the collection of foreign knowledge, especially naval intelligence. This context supports the plausibility of Piri Reis acquiring diverse maps, but documentation of these acquisitions is sparse. The map's orientation and scale vary across regions, indicating it was not designed as a single unified projection. This characteristic complicates claims of advanced accuracy and suggests a patchwork assembly rather than a coherent global vision. Despite extensive study, historians cannot definitively identify all the maps Piri Reis referenced. This gap represents a core limitation, as the credibility of the compilation depends heavily on sources that are now lost or untraceable. Radiocarbon analysis of the parchment confirms a 16th-century origin, aligning with Piri Reis's lifetime. While this verifies the artifact's age, it does not validate the accuracy or antiquity of the information it contains. The map's rediscovery coincided with a period of renewed interest in historical anomalies, influencing how it was initially framed. This timing may have shaped interpretations, emphasizing mystery rather than methodological explanation. Academic consensus generally views the Piri Reis map as impressive, but not inexplicable. Still, unresolved questions persist regarding the speed at which geographic knowledge circulated after early transatlantic voyages. The lack of the map's eastern sections prevents analysis of Asia or the Pacific as Piri Reis might have depicted them. This absence restricts conclusions and leaves open the possibility that missing portions could alter current interpretations. Over time, the map has been used to support conflicting narratives, from conventional historical models to more speculative claims. The persistence of debate highlights how limited evidence can sustain multiple interpretations without resolution. At its core, the Piri Reis map stands as a documented artifact whose significance lies as much in what is missing as in what survives. The uncertainty surrounding its sources and intent continues to frame it as an unresolved historical question. One of the most persistent debates concerns whether the map depicts Antarctica centuries before its official discovery. This interpretation arises from the southern extension of landforms, but the claim depends heavily on projection assumptions and ignores alternative explanations grounded in cartographic distortion. Critics of the Antarctica hypothesis point out that the southern landmass more closely resembles an extended South American coastline. Given limited exploration at the time, mapmakers often extrapolated unknown regions, creating continuous land where gaps in knowledge existed. No surviving 16th-century records indicate awareness of Antarctica as a distinct continent. This absence weakens claims of advanced ancient knowledge and underscores the importance of distinguishing retrospective pattern recognition from documented historical understanding. The inscriptions written by Piri Reis Note regions that were uninhabited or very hot, reflecting second-hand reports rather than direct observation. These descriptions reveal how hearsay influenced maps, introducing uncertainty alongside factual geographic outlines. Several of the source maps Piri Reis cited were likely captured from enemy vessels during naval engagements. While this explains access to foreign charts, it also raises questions about the accuracy and completeness of materials obtained under such circumstances. Portuguese explorers closely guarded navigational data as state secrets. This secrecy suggests that any Portuguese maps in Ottoman hands may have been incomplete or outdated, limiting how precise Piri Reis's compilation could realistically be. The map does not include the Caribbean islands in detail, despite European activity in the region by 1513. This omission indicates selective sourcing and challenges claims that the map reflects comprehensive New World knowledge. Some coastlines on the map align better when adjusted to specific projection models. However, applying modern projections retroactively introduces bias, as it assumes an intent and mathematical framework not documented for Piri Reis. The process of copying maps by hand often introduced cumulative errors. Each replication risked distortion, meaning even accurate originals could produce misleading results when combined into a single composite chart. The scale of the Piri Reis map varies noticeably between regions, suggesting it was never meant for precise navigation across oceans. Instead, it may have served as a reference overview, limiting expectations of technical accuracy. Ottoman cartography during this period emphasized strategic coastlines rather than inland detail. This focus aligns with the map's content, but also explains why certain interior regions appear vague or entirely absent. Later commentators sometimes isolated specific features of the map to support extraordinary claims. This selective reading overlooks broader inconsistencies that undermine arguments for hidden or lost advanced civilizations. Scientific examination of the ink and pigments confirms materials consistent with early 16th century techniques. These findings authenticate the artifact itself, but do not extend to validating the antiquity of the geographic information portrayed. Linguistic analysis of the map's annotations reflects Ottoman Turkish conventions of the time. This consistency supports authorship attribution, while offering no evidence that the content originated from significantly older sources. The lack of corroborating maps showing identical features remains a major limitation. Without parallel examples, it is difficult to determine whether certain shapes represent real knowledge or coincidental resemblance. Historians emphasize that early cartographers often merged observation with speculation. Blank spaces were uncomfortable, and imagined coastlines sometimes filled gaps where no data existed. The Piri Reis map emerged during an era when the concept of a southern continent was widely accepted in theory. This belief provides a conventional explanation for southern landmasses without invoking unknown discoveries. Some modern reconstructions attempt to digitally restore the missing portions of the map. These reconstructions are speculative by nature and cannot be treated as evidence of original content. The map's fame has grown disproportionately to its size and completeness. This amplification illustrates how limited artifacts can assume outsized significance when surrounded by unanswered questions. Academic debate continues largely because the original source maps cited by Piri Reis are lost. Their absence prevents direct comparison and leaves arguments dependent on inference rather than verification. Educational portrayals often simplify the map's story, presenting it as either inexplicably advanced or easily dismissed. Both extremes obscure the nuanced uncertainties documented by historians. The Ottoman Empire's engagement with global geography is sometimes underestimated in Western narratives. Recognizing this context reduces the need for extraordinary explanations while still acknowledging unresolved details. Attempts to date the geographic information itself, rather than the artifact, remain inconclusive. Coastlines evolve slowly, making it difficult to assign precise temporal markers based solely on shape. The map does not demonstrate knowledge of circumnavigation or global longitudinal calculation. This absence reinforces the interpretation that it reflects partial, region-specific information. Comparisons with contemporary European maps show that similar distortions and speculative features were common. This parallel weakens arguments that the Piri Reis map stands outside normal cartographic practice. Despite this, certain alignments still challenge straightforward explanation. These features keep investigative interest alive, even as conventional theories account for much of the map's appearance. Scholarly disagreement persists not over whether the map is genuine, but over how much it reveals about information exchange in the early modern world. This distinction is often blurred in popular discussion. The debate illustrates how historical artifacts can accumulate layers of interpretation over time. Each generation re-examines the same evidence through new assumptions and analytical tools. Without new discoveries, conclusions remain provisional. The map resists definitive classification as either mundane or extraordinary, occupying an unresolved middle ground. This unresolved status has secured the Piri Reis map a lasting place in historical inquiry, defined less by answers than by the limitations that continue to surround it. Beyond academic circles, the Piri Reis map has influenced public imagination, often framed as evidence of lost knowledge. This cultural impact demonstrates how unresolved artifacts can shape narratives, though such influence does not substitute for documented historical proof. Media representations frequently omit scholarly caution, emphasizing anomalies without context. This selective focus amplifies mystery, but obscures methodological limitations that historians consistently highlight when evaluating the map. The map's survival as a fragment introduces unavoidable interpretive bias. Analysts must infer intent and content from incomplete evidence, a process that inherently limits certainty and leaves room for competing conclusions. Efforts to reconcile the map with modern coastlines depend heavily on digital manipulation. While informative, these techniques rely on assumptions that cannot be independently verified against 16th-century cartographic practices. Some features appear accurate only when viewed in isolation. When examined as part of the entire fragment, inconsistencies emerge, suggesting coincidence rather than systematic precision. The absence of contemporaneous Ottoman commentary discussing extraordinary geographic discoveries weakens claims of hidden knowledge. If such information existed, its lack of documentation remains unexplained. Historical inquiry must account for the possibility of lost records, but this possibility cannot be used as evidence itself. The balance between acknowledging gaps and avoiding speculation remains central to evaluating the map. Comparative studies show that early modern maps often blended multiple regions at incompatible scales. This common practice explains many anomalies without invoking unknown surveying capabilities. The Piri Reis map challenges linear assumptions about knowledge transfer. It demonstrates that information moved across cultural and political boundaries more fluidly than often assumed. At the same time, the map reinforces known limitations of the era, including the absence of standardized measurements and reliable global reference points. The persistence of unanswered questions highlights the fragility of historical reconstruction. When key sources disappear, interpretation becomes constrained by what survives rather than what once existed. The map's continued study reflects broader issues in historical methodology, where artifacts are evaluated not only for content, but for context, provenance, and transmission. No new physical evidence has emerged to significantly alter current understanding. As a result, debate remains anchored to the same fragmentary artifact and its inscriptions. Claims that the map proves pre-modern global exploration lack direct support. Such assertions rely on reinterpretation rather than newly uncovered documentation. Conversely, dismissing the map as unremarkable ignores its documented complexity and the sophistication of its compilation process. The unresolved nature of the Piri Reis map lies in this tension between explanation and uncertainty. It neither confirms extraordinary theories nor fully resolves within conventional frameworks. This ambiguity has allowed the map to persist as a reference point in discussions about historical knowledge exchange and cartographic evolution. Its value to historians rests less in definitive answers than in the questions it raises about lost sources and incomplete records. Each analysis ultimately returns to the same limitation: the absence of the original maps Piri Reis cited. Without those sources, conclusions remain conditional, dependent on inference rather than verification. The map stands as a reminder that historical artifacts can be authentic, yet still resist complete understanding. Authenticity alone does not guarantee clarity, especially when documentation is fragmented or missing. The Piri Reis map occupies a space where evidence is real, but interpretation remains constrained. This condition defines many historical mysteries, where surviving materials answer some questions while generating others. The inability to resolve these issues reflects the boundaries of historical knowledge rather than a failure of inquiry. As long as the source materials remain lost, debate will continue without closure. The map's endurance in scholarly discussion illustrates how absence itself can become central to investigation. In this way, the Piri Reis map is defined as much by what cannot be proven as by what can be documented. Its mystery persists not because of hidden truths, but because of enduring evidentiary limits. The facts are real. The explanation is up to you.